Vampires are real, and I can prove it. My proof isn't some faded document or a myth passed down through generations. My proof is a memory that haunts me every night when I close my eyes, a memory that has turned my life into a living nightmare. I met Sarah on a chilly autumn evening at a quaint little cafe in town. She was everything I had ever wanted: beautiful, intelligent, and full of life. Her pale skin seemed to glow under the dim lights, and her eyes, deep and mesmerizing, held a secret I was eager to unravel. We connected instantly, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. Sarah had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the world. Every moment with her was magical, but there were strange things, too. Things I shrugged off in the bliss of new love. She never ate in front of me, claiming she wasn't hungry, and I never saw her during the day. She would always say she had work or some other excuse, and I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I was in love. But then things started to change. It began with small, almost unnoticeable oddities. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find her staring at me, her eyes reflecting the moonlight like a predator watching its prey. Her touch, once warm and comforting, began to feel cold and distant. I chalked it up to the stress of her job, but deep down, I knew something was off. One night, after a particularly intense argument with my mother, she never really liked Sarah, said there was something off about her, I stormed out of the house, needing space to clear my head. When I returned, the house was eerily quiet. The usual sounds of my mother bustling around were absent, replaced by an unnatural silence. I called out for her, but there was no answer. Panic began to creep in as I searched the house, my heart pounding in my chest. I found her in the living room, lying on the floor, her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. There was a gaping wound in her neck, and blood pooled around her lifeless body. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My mother, my anchor, was dead. In the chaos of my grief, I heard a soft, familiar voice behind me. I turned to see Sarah standing in the doorway, her face calm, almost serene. "Sarah! What happened?" I choked out, my voice trembling. She looked at me with those deep, dark eyes, and for the first time, I saw her for what she really was. There was no warmth in her gaze, only hunger. A cold, ravenous hunger that sent a shiver down my spine. "I told you, didn't I?" she said, her voice as smooth as silk. "You should have listened to your mother." I backed away, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. You did this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. She stepped closer, and I saw it, her fangs long and sharp, glinting in the dim light. "I never wanted you to find out this way," she said, her voice softening, almost apologetic. "But you left me no choice." I stumbled back, horror washing over me. The pieces of the puzzle finally fell into place. The strange behaviors, the nocturnal habits, the coldness in her touch. Sarah wasn't just a woman with a secret. She was a vampire, a creature of the night, and she had killed my mother. "Why?" I managed to croak out, my voice cracking with emotion. She sighed, a look of genuine sorrow crossing her face. She was getting too close to the truth. She knew what I was, and she would have exposed me. I couldn't let that happen. Anger surged through me, replacing the fear that had paralyzed me moments before. "You killed her!" I screamed, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. "You killed my mother!" Sarah's eyes flashed with something dark, something I had never seen before. "I did what I had to do," she said coldly. "You have no idea what it's like living in the shadows, hiding who you really are. I thought you could understand, that you could accept me. But I see now that was a mistake." She moved closer, her footsteps silent on the hardwood floor. "You should have left it alone," she whispered, her breath cold against my skin. "But now you've seen too much." Fear gripped me once more, and I knew I had to run. But my legs refused to move, frozen in place by the terror that consumed me. She reached out, her hand brushing against my cheek, and I flinched at the icy touch. "I loved you," she said softly, and for a moment I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman I had believed in. But that moment passed, and the monster behind her eyes returned. "Goodbye, my love," she whispered. In the blink of an eye, she was gone, leaving me alone in the darkness with the lifeless body of my mother. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face, my mind reeling from the horror of what had just happened. I don't know how long I stayed there, clutching my mother's cold hand, praying that this was all just a nightmare. But it wasn't. This was real. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was a vampire, a creature of the night, capable of unspeakable horrors. And now, she was out there, somewhere in the darkness, waiting. I don't know what's worse. The fact that I still love her, or the fact that I know she'll come back for me. Because she will. She has to. We're connected, bound by a love that transcends life and death. So when I tell you that vampires are real, believe me, I have the proof. The proof is in my broken heart, in the blood that stains my hands, and in the memory that haunts my every waking moment. Vampires are real, and they walk among us, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. And one day, when you least expect it, they'll find you too. Just like she found me.